All right, welcome back to the Geek Stack podcast. There's been a lot going on in comic book culture, and Batman has some spicy stuff we're going to get into. Which y'all couldn't see off camera as I was doing some dancing during the intro. So
I don't know if I would call it dancing.
Yeah, it was something like that. Anyway, so we have recently both purchased Batman Spawn. What's the official title? Let me grab the book.
It's just called Batman versus Spawn.
Is it Batman versus Spawn?
That's what it was last time. I'm guessing that's what it is.
It is. Well, there's no title on that one. I'm looking through the comic books right now because I got multiple copies. Yeah, it's just Batman Spawn. It's not Batman versus Spawn. So,
well, it was Batman versus Spawn like the first few pages.
It was. It's pretty good.
They was getting at it. And like the panels, Dad, I haven't seen panels like that. Well, Deadly Duo is the same way, but
okay,
there hasn't been like a normalization of that since like Court of Owls, Batman Eternal, Dark Knight's Metal, but that's not like a normal thing anymore. So like seeing that, I was like, oh, this is dope. This is really cool.
What was good about Batman Spawn is the storyline, and I don't know if you got this same impression, but when I opened the book and I started reading, immediately I was like, oh, they really care about this storyline in this book.
Well, because they somehow created even like the preface, you could intimately see how they're both similar characters. And I've always felt the same way because they are kind of similar characters. They like tattered past, and now they're cut off from their emotions for the mission that they have to achieve, right?
Yeah.
And you can see that and how both of them act in different iterations of, well, Spawn only has one iteration, but different iterations of Batman and stuff like that. You can kind of tell, and it's very cool to watch those two characters interact with each other. Right? Because they're like cut from the same cloth in a way of like they think that they are that dude, which honestly they both are, but it's like seeing them interact with each other on that level, which is very interesting. Like the scene where Spawn was like you mess with my enemies, you will die. Batman was like, well, I use my head, honestly.
Yeah. So the what Batman got into is Batman explained to Spawn that he's learned over the years that it's not about what is below your neck, right? Talking about superpowers. It's about what's above your neck.
And that is like getting back to that, to the core. Because like, I mean, it's all in the comic books. You can see that all the time. But a lot of people nowadays, they just watch the movies, they see the cartoons, and they don't really see much.
They don't know the lore.
Exactly. Of Batman talking about things like that. But to the core of his character, that's what he is. And like seeing them talk about that in a story like this, that's not really like part of the mainline story, but they're still giving it the care and the preciseness the story needs is really like, okay, like and you can see that, like I'm telling you you should get Deadly Duo. I haven't gotten number 2 yet. I'll probably get it in like another month and a half or so if I can find it, but Deadly Duo is really good. Like the first issue, I was like, this is dope. Batman
has some good stories, and I think, like I said, I think what we're getting back to is the focus on the quick-wittedness of Batman, his smarts, his brain, how fast he figures things out. And this comic really captured that. Like, as you're reading the book, you're like, man, Batman is picking up on these things pretty quickly, but it doesn't feel forced. That's a good word. It doesn't feel forced. It feels like they're really leading you into this detective aspect of Batman, which coincidentally, the latest Batman movie kind of did the same thing, and I really appreciate this.
Who doesn't really like that movie too much?
Who doesn't like it?
My uncle.
Oh, he doesn't. No. The Batman. I
was talking with him about it, and he was like, he doesn't think that it was bad, but he doesn't think it was good as the Nolan movies. And like, I get it.
I understand.
But because like that's not a ridiculous thing to say. I just like it better than Nolan movies.
So, I think people who enjoy the Batman enjoy it for a separate reason than they enjoy the Nolan movies. I think the Nolan movies captured the essence of the brawler, the fighter.
No. You don't remember those fight scenes?
Hold on. I'm not saying
captured the tech.
I don't mean his fight scenes were the greatest.
Every punch that would be a jump cut.
No. Okay, so let me explain what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they were the greatest fight scenes. I'm saying that was the focus. The focus was on Batman the Brawler. It wasn't necessarily on his quick wit, his brain, how fast he figured things out. And
yeah,
Reeves,
you couldn't really like the thing about it. Like as good as those movies were, you didn't really get the inclination that Batman was all that smart.
super smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
You knew he was smart, but it
wasn't like oh, this dude is like, this is Batman. Like Batman is that dude. He knows things that people don't regularly know. And
in
like,
the Reeves movie, you were like, oh yeah, Batman.
he
that
walked
dude.
so the scene where he walked into the crime scene and he was just like, oh, he died.
Piecing
about
things
2-3
together
hours
immediately.
ago.
Yeah.
There was a laceration here. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is Batman. This is the Batman I see in the comic books.
Yes, exactly. And I think the Spawn, the most recent Spawn Batman captures that exact feeling. But it's from a more well-rounded Batman. Not only is Batman a master brawler, but his brain is just beyond.
The scene where he gets in the dead zone,
Yes.
and he starts clocking, he starts beating him up, and then Spawn is like scared to go back. He's like, no.
For those,
and Spawn is former military too.
Yeah, for those who haven't
part.
read the comic book yet. Okay, so this is the short story. Spawn has went for the okie doke. He's been sold the lie that somehow the Batman, the Dark Knight, has control of his wife's soul.
Wanda.
So Spawn goes into Batman's universe, and I can't remember. Did he believe if he killed Batman that her soul would be released? I can't remember exactly how it went.
He was trying to get Batman to give him her soul back.
Right. So
he was putting the paws on him.
Right. So Spawn fell for the okie doke. So while they're fighting, Batman quickly figures out that there's this space where they're fighting where Spawn's powers are inactive. He figures that out very quickly. And Batman begins to beat the brakes off of Spawn.
And then there's a scene where they're both standing in separate places.
Right.
And Spawn's like, come on, you won't fight me? He's like, no, I'm good here. You can come over here. And he's like, no, you know what?
It's pretty good.
Let's talk it out.
Right. It's pretty good. And what you begin to see is Batman doesn't always figure everything out, right? Sometimes people get to drop on him, but Batman
Rebirth story where he was facing off against his dad from the Flashpoint universe.
Yeah, I haven't read that one.
Dad, you look, as much as you aren't a fan of a lot of the Rebirth stories, you have to go through the Rebirth run of Batman where he's fighting with Bane and his father.
Yeah,
it's really good. Like it is really good. Like I can't like. It was they're going crazy out there.
Yeah, fireworks. The New Year's coming in.
I was like watching the comic story video, and I would read certain ones. There's this one because it talks more about his origin story too. So there's this one origin where, origin story is like a flashback where he's like in this pit. And I think it was, who was it? It was not Talia al Ghul. It was Lady Shiva, right? And he was fighting all these people, and she's like, "Why won't you kill anybody?" And he was like, "I'm not. That's not me." Like, and he was just fighting all these people for like 28 hours, and he won like every single time. And like, she was like, "Why aren't you guys fighting him?" They're like, "For the health of for his health or for safety, right?" She's like, "Safety from what?" He's like, "No, not his safety, our safety. He's clocking us. He's going crazy." And like, as much as I understand your aggravation with a lot of the newer stories and the constant reboots,
that's the problem. It's not the stories. It's
regardless
the
of that, it is good because you know me. I was a New 52 guy for the longest time. Like I knew the most about the New 52, and then when they had Rebirth, I was just like, I'm sick of this. I was off comic books for like 4 or 5 years, and then I got back. Batman is good. Nightwing is good, but I don't know if you like Nightwing. It's not really your style, but
I don't mind.
Regardless, there's a lot of really good stories in Rebirth.
Yeah, so
that I feel like because you've been burned so many times, you're less likely to like be like, oh, I should read this.
No, it's not. Okay, so let me correct you. It's not that I don't like the stories. That's not what it is. It's not that I think the stories are bad. That's not what it is. I don't like getting wrapped up in a story, very interested in a story, pulled in, and then having a reboot pull everything from under my legs. And that's been done so many times that
DC is a horrendous rebooter.
They do it too much.
They've rebooted like twice in the last 20 years alone.
I can't deal with that.
They rebooted to New 52, was it 2008, 2009?
So here's what's funny.
2016, 2017, Rebirth.
Here's what's funny. So we walk into the comic book store last week. We went into to the comic book store when we were buying the Spawn books. And there was a guy in there. He was looking for X-Men. I was looking at a new X-Men title. It looked pretty good. Wolverine was on the cover. The artwork was great. I looked through it, and I sat there and I shook my head. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this because X-Men just has too many storylines out there. And a dude, he understood. He's an older gentleman. Probably had me by like 15 years. You can tell he's been collecting comics for a while. And he said the same exact thing I was thinking.
So
he said, hold on. He said, yeah, I'm not going to pick up X-Men because they just have too many stories going in too many different directions. And it's just too hard to keep up at this point.
This right here, and I know what you're gonna say, but this right here is why the manga and webtoon industry is eating the comic book industry alive.
I don't doubt it.
Because when you read a manga, like I'll tell you one of the most popular ones, Berserk. Berserk has been going on for almost 30 years, and it's had the same story consistently for the past 30 years. I think 800 plus chapters, right? And it's easy to follow even though it's long. And One Piece. That's another one. One Piece has been going on forever. There's literal thousands of chapters, but because it's one cohesive story and it's not like a bunch of stuff going on at once, reboots, this and that, like 4 or 5 times a year. It's easier to follow, and a lot of younger people, like people in my generation, are able to gravitate towards those more easily because they don't have to worry about, well, is this canon or is this not canon? Like, what's this? Like, is this like transferable? This and that. And
but I digress because we've gone over that before. I want to get back to this Batman Spawn. Okay, Greg Capullo's art.
Greg Capullo is the indefatigable GOAT. I said that word wrong, but I thought it sounded cool. Anyways, because he did the art for.
I don't know if I could give him.
He did the art for Court of Owls.
Okay, so this is where we're gonna get. Hold on. This gets into the subjective, because I think Greg Capullo is a great artist, but I don't know if I prefer Greg Capullo's art over a Mark Silverstreet.
Ooh, okay, that's not fair though.
But you see what I'm saying?
But that's not a fair comparison.
But it's subjective. Like
Mark Silverstreet, his work in Deadly Duo is like, you need to read that book.
Okay, so
it's really good.
Would I take Greg Capullo or Jim Lee? I mean, come on, I'm taking Jim Lee all day long. I think now, but let me say, I would agree with you that Greg Capullo is one of the greatest artists.
Right.
He's one of the greatest artists. His art.
Keith Williams is a good one too. I met him a few years ago at MegaCon.
I will say Scott Williams, the inker, who I believe he's drawn some things as well. Jim Lee, which Scott Williams in the early years did a lot of inks for Jim Lee. I think on that original X-Men #1 run.
Oh.
Mark Silverstreet, Brett Booth, Todd McFarlane, Greg Capullo.
Todd McFarlane did the story for most of the New 52 Batman, and I think he did a lot of the Rebirth stuff too. Like a lot of the really good Batman stories that have come out in the past like 15 or so years. Todd McFarlane, like he is.
Yeah, Todd McFarlane did a lot of good. He did a lot of good Spider-Man runs in the past as well.
I didn't know that.
Also, I'll tell you an artist that doesn't get enough love. And he did some of the, I think it was X-Men Gold, because I have some of those issues.
I heard that's pretty good.
Ken Lashley.
No idea.
If you're not familiar with Ken Lashley, so he did some of the mid-90s Age of Apocalypse, but look up his work on X-Men Gold. I believe it was X-Men Gold or X-Men Blue. Pretty sure it was Gold. Look that up and verify that. But Ken Lashley is another one that doesn't get noticed. He's from Canada, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say Toronto, but I could be wrong. But Ken Lashley is probably one of, I think he should be up there in that category of, one of the greatest comic book artists. I would say, just my personal opinion. I realize you guys out there may not agree because, again, this is subjective.
Oh, he did the Justice League Tower of Babel.
I would put Ken Lashley in my top 10. Ooh. I would definitely put him in my top 10. He's a great artist, and another one that doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't get enough notoriety. His name doesn't go around enough like a Jim Lee or a Greg Capullo, right? Those guys are rock stars. Ken Lashley is like that dude that holds his own. He's on par, but he's one of the greatest comic book artists you rarely hear of. I'm not going to say you've never heard of, because I'm sure to those of you who read comic books and love comic books, you've probably heard of him. But I said all that to say, Greg Capullo's art in this Batman Spawn book is so good.
There's a panel
so good
where it's like the face of Batman, and you know what I'm talking about? It's in like the first 2 pages.
I'm trying to see because he did the inside pencils, didn't he?
Yeah.
Or was it just the cover? I'm pretty sure
He did the inside for a lot of the like because when it was coming out, it was him and who did Spawn?
Todd McFarlane. Yeah. So let me see. I'm looking at it now. So
you know what? It wasn't Todd McFarlane that did those Batman stories. I was thinking of somebody else.
Todd McFarlane wrote the story.
Was it?
The pencils are all by Greg Capullo. Inks by Todd McFarlane. Colors, Dave McKeag, and letters by Tom Napolitano.
Somebody Snyder.
Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder?
No. The only reason I know is because when I heard the stories coming out, I was like, oh, this is a similar name as the person who does Snyderverse.
Okay.
That was who I was thinking of. I don't know why I said Todd McFarlane.
It's all right. You corrected yourself. But anyway, Greg Capullo's art in this book is magnificent.
It reminds me of a lot of the stuff I saw in the Court of Owls. He did that too.
And shout out to Todd McFarlane for this story because the story wasn't lazy.
No, well, it's Todd McFarlane. Well, you know what I'm saying?
But the reason I say that is because there's so many comic book stories now that are so lazy.
But is it written by one of the people who helped to form Image Comics? You know what I'm saying? Like, were they all written by pioneers of the industry?
Well, it doesn't. So this is the thing: a story doesn't have to be by a pioneer in the industry.
Yes, I'm saying that you're less likely to get something bad from one of them than you are from anybody else.
Jim Lee has a terrible track record with writing stories.
That's different. That's different. But I've always thought Jim Lee's art is better than his stories.
Yeah,
that's not up for debate. His stories are. They're okay.
They're
literally. They're
mid.
nothing crazy. Like I've never been like, oh, Jim Lee wrote this. Like I'm like, oh, Jim Lee drew this. All right.
But I think you do get people. I think when people are excited because you have a lot of independent comic books that are out now that I'm probably going to start collecting a lot more of these independent comics. I think
should collect some manga.
Ethan Van Sciver does Cyberfrog, and actually the local comic book store here, to my surprise, actually sells Cyberfrog. So I might start. You know, when I first saw it, it just looked like a title that I was like, would I really be interested in this? But there's a lot of people. Yeah, there's a lot of people who like it. Yeah. There's a lot of people who like it. So I was like, you know what? I might have to check this out. This might be better than I expected it to be. But the storyline, it wasn't lazy. It was intriguing. I think from the first panel got me. Like
you're talking about the first panel. We're talking about the parallels between both of them. I was like, man, like the panel was amazing. Where it showed like both of them in each situation where it was describing with the dialogue, and I was like, okay. And the inner monologue of Batman is also very like good as well in the beginning. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, this reminds me of like because have you read Court of the Owls?
So I watched the Comic Story, and yeah.
So you know, like a lot of the like dialogue.
Yo, by the way, shout out to Comic Storian.
Oh, he's the GOAT.
Oh my goodness,
he is the he is the undefined. Him and who is it?
Comics Explained. Yeah, if you want to know everything you need to know about X-Men, about Batman, about a storyline, a run,
Comic Storian
and Comics Explained,
mm-hmm.
I would agree with you. I don't know if there is a better breakdown.
Drake is up there too.
He's up there, but when I'm looking for, this might be biased. When I'm looking for a story, like let's say I've not read this book, I just want to know what the story is. I'm going Comics
Story, and he does a really good job. Like in Blackest Night, I never would have been interested in that story if I didn't see it on like Benny's like recommended one day. I was like, oh, let me see what this is about. It's really good. It was a really good story. I was pleasantly surprised. Like Kyle Renner, his character and that whole story. Amazing.
I would like to do some videos on my other channel, The Thinking. For those of you who want to follow me talk about some other things, I would like to do some videos on there. Not exactly the same, but similar to Comic Storian. But man, he set such a high standard.
He really did. And like, because I remember I started watching him when he started. Because I remember I started getting the comic books. I was like 15, 14, around that age. And he started posting videos, and I kept watching them, and seeing his progression has been so amazing. Because he used to only just post Batman stuff, and then
really, I didn't realize that. Because I thought he was mainly Marvel.
So he was mainly Marvel for a while, and then he started seeing stuff with Batman stuff. So that's when he started posting like a lot because a lot of his like older videos are Batman.
Yeah, because I
videos.
think let me see. I have to look on my
And
YouTube.
that's why I knew so much about New 52 Batman because that's all he would post. And I'd be like, oh, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, because I think wasn't Comic Storian was always more focused
He's
on
a
DC.
Marvel. Yeah, he likes Marvel, but he is a DC dude.
Let me see. I have to. Yeah. So
The thing about him
Comic
is-
Storian, if you want, like, I think he has more in depth knowledge of DC than
No.
Comics Explained.
For sure.
Yeah, but
Comics
they still
Explained is more Marvel based.
and X-Men. If you want to know X-Men, Comics Explained,
he can tell you every
That dude-
single above Omega level mutant, the exact page
dude
they're
is just
on,
an endless
the year it came out.
encyclopedia. Yeah. He's like, I don't know. I think me and him are around the same age. I don't know if
How he finds time.
read all these comic books. And the thing is, it's one thing to be familiar with the story.
He
and
knows.
give a break.
He knows.
Yeah, it's like
didn't-
beyond.
Who asked him to come to interview for one of the big movies that was
Was
out?
it Spider-Man?
Yes.
It was Marvel.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Marvel?
They were talking.
It was
to him.
it was the Spider-Man where
the new one, the Tom Holland.
No, not that. Was
Spider-Verse?
it? Was it? Not Far From Home. The one with Mysterio. Why can't I remember the title of this movie?
Spider-Man, not Homecoming.
Oh my goodness.
What the heck?
Is it Far From Home? No.
No, Far From Home is a multi.
I don't know why I can't remember the title of this
What?
movie. Now I'm gonna have to look it up. But anyway, so Comic Storian actually interviewed
No Way Home.
No Way Home. Comic Storian actually interviewed the cast. Like, that's how big he's gotten, and that's how much notoriety he's gotten, and rightfully so. Rightfully
No Way Home's
so.
a new one. It was Far From Home.
Far From Home, yeah,
Yeah.
rightfully so, because I don't know. It's like you said. I don't know where he finds the time.
It's got to be like taxing or something, or maybe
It's
he's
gotta
just that
be.
dude.
It's gotta
The thing
be
about
because-
so something that's cool about Comic Story, and he had like a video explaining his origin story. Kind of, he used to be a vet. He used to be in the military, and then he got injured, and he didn't know what he was doing. And
I
then
didn't realize
he
that.
started doing YouTube, and that just became his thing.
Oh wow, look. I would love to do nothing but YouTube. That would be nice. I don't know if that'll ever happen. You know what? So side note, I think maybe I'm wrong.
This is gonna last like 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Y'all. His side notes be long.
Maybe I'm wrong. You can correct me if you think I'm wrong. I think maybe the time and the age of people randomly blowing up on YouTube might be coming to a close.
You're wrong.
Okay, correct me.
And I will tell you this now. Depends on your audience. It depends on what you're doing. I think that what you blow up getting famous for, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the randomness of it is definitely different, but I don't think it's going anywhere.
Okay, do you think it's still random, or do you think it's more algorithm based?
Sometimes it's random, sometimes it's algorithm based, sometimes it's hard work. Like Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast
It's hard work,
had a
but he's been doing
whole
it for
plan.
a long time.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's the thing. He didn't randomly just blow up.
Right.
Now, there are
right.
people who randomly blow. Like you have your iShowSpeeds, right? Your not Kai Cenat. Kai Cenat's been doing it for a while too. Well, actually, no, your Kai Cenat's. He's been doing it for like 3 years, and he's like crazy. And it really just depends on the audience that you attract.
Yeah, I
Because
think
there's a lot of different audiences nowadays that never really had people they could relate to until recently.
Okay,
Do you get
yeah.
what I mean?
Nah, I agree. And I think also what happens is sometimes we think people blow up because of the algorithm, and it may just be that they caught a wave, of an audience
Yeah.
that just was being underserved. And I think that does happen a lot. Because there's channels that I follow now, and I've watched their progression, and I'm like, my goodness, I remember when you had like 4,000 subs. Now
Yep.
you're like 400,000 strong. When did
No.
this happen?
It's honestly, so I think that the more you'll get more longevity out of doing it the Mr. Beast way, or the way of like starting from the bottom and just
Slowly
going
building
back
up an audience.
Because if you just get an audience like that out of nowhere randomly, that high is eventually gonna go.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'll give you a good example. You're not gonna know any of these people I'm talking about, but I'm gonna just
Okay.
say it
shoot.
anyways. There's this Call of Duty clan called FaZe Clan, right?
Oh, I know about FaZe Clan. What did you think I wouldn't know about FaZe Clan?
Because you're old. Anyways, no way.
Oh, shots fired.
Bow, bow. Nah, so they used to have a lot of really like popular creators, and they would do nothing but vlog content, and they get millions of views, right? And just get like all these viewers and stuff like that. And they had this one, they still have this one member called FaZe Jeff, and he always used to average like 400,000, 600,000 views a video, right? But he
Okay.
always did the same video, and he created himself a very tight-knit fan base. Now, all those FaZe creators that used to do all that stuff, a lot of them don't get as many views nowadays.
Okay.
Or they don't post anymore because they stopped getting that many views. Him, FaZe Jev, he is still like getting the same numbers and still has the same tight knit fan base because he
Doing
built
numbers.
he
I
built
like
his
it.
thing around what he liked doing and what his fans like were like. Oh, this is cool, and he's just always like he's like the one phase when people don't hate because he's just him. He's just Jeff. Everybody
Interesting.
likes Jason.
I like it. I like it. Okay,
Cool dude.
so maybe one day the Geek Stack podcast, if we actually get consistent and keep going,
We'll get
will blow-
consistent.
blow
We're
up to be
consistent
some-
now.
At some point, we'll get there. It's just been busy moving, starting new jobs, both of us, things going on.
Things
so
going
yeah,
on.
life happening. But yeah, so I stand corrected. So maybe there is a way to organically grow and serve audiences on YouTube, which it does happen. I've seen
Yeah.
channels grow in the past 3 years, especially people being more at home, people
Yes,
focusing more on
But I think the
content.
randomness aspect still happens. Not as much like on. I mean, it happens on YouTube every now and again. But I guess it is less happening. But what will happen is someone will get famous like that on TikTok or Instagram, and it transfers over. Do you
Right.
know what I mean?
Or consistency.
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing. I
Yeah.
think the channel, that's all, I want to try to get more consistent on Geek Stack. But I'll be honest with you, and we've talked about this. We actually talked about this earlier. I'm not an expert on any of these issues, especially comic and geek stuff. I'm just a geek, but I'm not necessarily an expert on one thing or another. I know a lot about a lot of these different things, and I think maybe there is a space for people like me who I am a geek and I enjoy this stuff.
Well, you
But
can
I'm
see
not
it.
an
You can see
expert.
it with the Rippaverse.
Yes, I'm
So
glad you brought that up.
it's the thing about it is like it's not a matter of like these people don't exist, right? It's a matter of finding them. Do you know what I mean? And making those communities come together. Like you remember, like the Rippaverse videos on your other channel did really well, right?
Did numbers.
Because people are
Did numbers.
constantly looking for something that they can't find anywhere else.
This is
You know
true.
what I mean? That's why Rippaverse is one of the best selling comics of the year.
This is true.
People are recognizing like, oh, there's a need, and this person feels that need, and
Right.
I feel like I'm not represented in like the medias that I enjoy. Do you get
Right.
what I'm saying?
Right, just telling a good story, which is
Exactly.
why the Spawn Batman was so refreshing.
is.
It's just a good.
Correct. The variant covers are insane too.
Yeah, they are. They are pretty nuts.
There's one that looks like Kingdom Come.
Mm,
You know what I'm talking about?
Mm,
you know
yeah.
the cover I'm talking about?
I think so. I think
That
so.
it looks like I don't know who did that, but that is crazy. I'm gonna look that up.
Good covers. The whole storyline,
It
like I
might have been
said,
Alex Ross.
everything about it is good. So what do you think about? We were talking about this a little bit earlier. Henry Cavill. This is here's an interesting.
Okay, hold up.
Okay, go
Let me
ahead.
say this.
Go ahead. Speak your piece.
All right. I'll make a metaphor. DC is like that one drunk dude in college who finally starts getting his life together too little too late. Right?
That's a bar.
Like DC had all the potential and fumbled it all, and now they're trying to
They had the muscle.
they're trying to play catch up, and the thing about Henry Cavill is it's just an unfortunate situation, right? He came into a universe at the wrong time when the creators weren't having full like creative reign to make cohesive stories,
Yeah.
and they were focused on money. And now it's like I understand and I don't, right?
Okay.
Because like Henry Cavill is Superman. That is like Henry Cavill is what Kevin Conroy was to Batman to Superman,
Okay.
right? Like he's Superman. For all intents and purposes, you say Superman, people think in their head Henry Cavill. And the unfortunate part about it is, in order for DC to even have some type of cohesiveness or like some type of vision for a story that people want to watch, and it's not just like, oh, give me your money, they're gonna have to make some big changes. And I'm not gonna agree with everything they do. I'm gonna keep it real. Like you're never supposed to agree with. I'm not gonna ever agree with everything, and I don't agree with the Henry Cavill thing. But it's like it's not like I don't get it, right? They're trying to get a fresh start and just restart the universe because they're talking about doing a younger Superman to kind of like reboot the universe. And I understand. Like I'm not like ignorant to the fact that like
So
this
do
is
you
really tough.
do you think what they're trying to do? So okay, all right. So here's a potential. I'm gonna throw
But
this out
before
there.
you finish,
Go
I'm
ahead.
gonna say this: they are trying to base a lot of their universe and stuff like that off of two different things. The Alex Ross Kingdom Come run of DC and the DC animated shows from the 2000s,
Okay, so
which were both incredibly amazing.
were
So I'm somewhat excited, and they're also working with Jim Lee to kind of make the relationship between the movies and the comic books cohesive, which I think would be
so
okay. It could be really good or really bad.
I think it has more potential to be bad, and I'll tell you why. Jim Lee, I love you, man. You're my favorite comic book artist. You are partly the reason why I read comic books to this day. That X-Men run you did in the early 90s, I could not wait to go and buy and pick up those books. When I saw your art, I could not wait to pick those books up. But you running a comic book company, bro, you suck. Like, and I hate it. I really hate it because I thought it would be
Why'd they get rid of Damage? Damage is really good. I still have
the
all
New
the
Age of
comic
Heroes. Okay, so this is what I was gonna say. I understand what Gunn might be trying to do, right? He may be trying to reboot the DCEU off of the Batman, which is smart.
So,
Which is smart because the Batman, as much hate as it got, look at the numbers. The movie did well.
not only was it a good comic movie, but it was just a good movie.
It was so accurate to the core of who Batman actually. You know what it felt
Matt
like?
Reeves.
It felt like I was watching a modern adaptation of Adam West's Batman.
So what I will say is the reason that my uncle didn't like the movie because he said Batman was too emo, and I was like, well,
I understand that.
it.
I understand that, but I also understand that they were going for Batman in his beginning, figuring himself out, which I got immediately. I was
as
like,
soon as
I
you
get
start
it.
seeing like he gets hit in the middle of the fight, I'm like, oh,
I get it.
this is year 2 Batman.
Yeah, he's a novice. He doesn't understand watching his surroundings. You know, he hasn't figured all he's yet to figure out how to translate that detective element into his fighting. And you see that later on in Batman.
That choreography is crazy.
It is, but so I understand James Gunn's. I think James Gunn might be.
on topic.
Go ahead.
Apparently, they used the Arkham games to base a lot of the combat. Off
Oh
of
yeah, I
in
did know
the-
that. Yeah, I did know
in
that.
the movie, which you could tell.
Okay, so James Gunn. Okay, I get it, bro. I get what you're trying to do. In my opinion, here's what would have been a smarter move. You could have done something different from Marvel. Separate yourself from Marvel, because I think DC has been trying too hard to compete with Marvel's cinematic universe, and DC's a different animal. What they could have done, we're going to keep Henry Cavill's Superman, and we're going to have, just like in the comic books where you have multiple runs of comic books, we're going to have Henry Cavill's Superman and his arc, and we're going to have another arc that runs consequently with the Batman. In my opinion, that's what they should have done.
What do you mean?
Okay, so you know how in the comic books you have different Batman runs, right? Like what's this one I got over here? The Legend, is it Legends?
Oh, Urban Legends?
Yeah, Urban Legends. Okay, so you have Urban Legends, then you have Detective Comics, then you have the Batman Dark Knight's Metal story, and then you have you know what I mean? So you have different stories running at the same time.
Have you seen the recent animated universe DC movies that are all connected?
I've not. I've seen them on HBO Max, but I haven't watched them
You
yet.
gotta
But
watch
I've
them.
seen them pop
You
up,
gotta watch
and I definitely
For
plan
the
on it.
first half of that entire story, it was good. The middle was good, and up until like the last 3 movies, it was a really like decent story and how they connected everything, because you were able to like see them as their own characters and then see how they all come together.
I don't even. You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't even think DC has. Let me figure out how to word this. They don't have to connect stories like Marvel did. Now, where DC teased us, and I'm really upset with DC over this.
Dark Side.
No, they teased Flashpoint, and they messed it up.
They're not gonna release that movie now.
No, they completely
It was like
botched
I
that
was
whole.
like I was so like hype. And you remember that episode in the Flash show where Ezra Miller shows up?
Yes,
Nothing's gonna be done with that.
yeah, and look, timing. Ezra Miller had his drama. We all know about that. You can't.
You mean war crimes?
Yeah. You can't do anything about that. People go crazy sometimes and do things. Why stars do these crazy things? Who knows? It could be a number of reasons, and that's unfortunate. But I think shelving Henry Cavill wasn't the move. I understand it, and I understand a point you made, but that, in my opinion, that will go down in history. Henry Cavill not getting another full Superman movie after the Man of Steel will go down as the biggest fumble in cinematic history when it comes to comic books.
He was just like, it was like the perfect storm, right? Dude is an actual geek. He loves the source material, and he's just genetically blessed. That's never gonna happen again.
Yeah,
that will never happen again. Okay, like that's never happening again. That's the only time we're gonna get that.
Yeah, I can't say never, but it's not
I'm
something.
Gonna say never. I'm disagreeing with you.
It's not something that's easy to come by. I know that for sure. Right? Yeah, you really had everything, and then he got cut from The Witcher as well.
Well, so he got cut from The Witcher because he decided to play Superman.
Which is so...
Because he couldn't do both at once.
Oh my
and then
goodness.
The Witcher sucks now too, and it's just...
Look, man, to all you movie studios, anybody looking to cut Henry Cavill, do that if you want to stop making money.
He has his own thing. He's getting a Warhammer 30,000 show that he's executive producing with Amazon.
Good. You know what? And I trust Henry Cavill as a geek, and I know this is going to be good.
Yeah.
Because he's a geek.
He's just a geek that happens to be really attractive, and I'm not gonna hate. I'm gonna be like, you know what?
Hey, I can't.
That's my guy.
I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad at him. One of us. Do your thing, homie. Do your thing. Henry Cavill.
No, Henry Cavill, cool.
We love you, man. You're a good dude.
Yeah.
I like I said, I understand what Gunn is trying to do. I don't know if he's gonna be able to execute. No,
I trust James Gunn.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
For two reasons.
Okay.
For three reasons.
Okay.
Ooh, wait. What was that show with John Cena?
The show with John Cena?
He was a Peacemaker.
Oh, Peacemaker. Okay. Yeah, I forgot all about that.
The Suicide Squad. Not Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad. And Guardians of the Galaxy.
Was he the original Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
Okay.
He does a really good job at delivering stories that are good, and he understands. Like, I think he tries to understand characters, and even if he doesn't, he makes it into a way that it's like a compelling story that you want to watch.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna lie, Guardians of the Galaxy, I never expected that to be a good movie.
No, Peacemaker.
I didn't think
Peacemaker
I was
a great show.
Yeah,
it was a really good show.
One of those things where you don't think you're going to be interested, and it's like,
and James Gunn has done that with a lot of different things. Okay. So I'm just gonna say wait. And the thing about them connecting the comic books to the movies, I don't know if they're gonna do it in the way we think they're gonna do it, where they're like, these comic books will follow this comic book story that just happened. I think it's gonna be more of a way of like, what storylines can we adapt and how can we do it good? I feel like that's more of a realistic take on what they're probably gonna do.
Okay, we shall see.
I'm gonna put my laurels on the three things that James Gunn delivered that I enjoyed.
Okay, I'll give you that. And I'll wait. I will say this though.
That Henry Cavill thing was dumb.
It is, but I'll go with your first judgment and say maybe he's thinking this through in a way that makes sense. Let him cook. But if he messes with this second Batman coming out,
oh my goodness.
I am done at that point.
That's it. That's it.
The Batman was. This is the thing about the Batman, and you remember this when they first introduced Rob Pattinson. I didn't like it,
and I had to explain to you.
Oh my goodness!
I had to explain to you that because he did because he didn't even like the what was it? Twilight movies.
Twilight, yeah.
He just did it for the bag. Like, people would ask him about it. He'd like, no, this movie sucks. Like, this is like when he was like doing stuff for the movie. Like, he knew it. He just wanted the bag. And after he did that, he was able to focus more on movies that were actually like decent stories and really good.
The movie you showed me where he played that dude from like Louisiana or something like that.
Oh, with the blonde hair?
Yeah, I was like,
that was good.
This dude can act.
No,
I was
he
like,
can
this dude
act.
Can really act.
He just was chasing the bag, and I can't hate on him.
Can't be mad at him.
Him doing that allowed him to be in more indie movies that didn't pay as much.
Right.
So we could actually focus on doing good stories. Like The Lighthouse, great movie.
So I'll go with your judgment because you were the first. You called it when they initially introduced him as Batman.
Everybody was hating, and I was like,
you were the only one.
I was like, let him cook.
One of the only ones. You were one of the only ones that was like, nah.
Because I'm like really into movies, so I remember like a lot of the movies that he came out with recently that were good. I'm like, he might be good.
Yeah, you called it. You called it. And the same reasons you said he would be good for is exactly why I enjoyed the Batman.
That's what I'm saying.
I enjoyed his acting style. I think
because he's used to playing dark, gritty characters. If you watch the Twilight movies, it's kind of all he did. So I had no problem with that.
I enjoyed the fact that he was emo in Batman for this reason.
You gotta talk to my uncle about
For this reason. He captured the vibe of a young man who lost his mother and father to a city that he loved. And now he has to reconcile that missing his parents and his love for his city, and how do I make this right? And you saw that battle as an actor. I think Rob Pattinson, I don't know if he read a bunch of comic books.
He did read a bunch of comic
before,
books.
but you can tell, in my opinion, you can tell.
And Paul Dano, who played the Riddler, they read a bunch of comic books. They read Court of the Owls, Batman Eternal.
You could tell. I could see in how he acted. Like,
I think Batman Year One. No, because they read comic books. Like I followed this heavily. Like
I know you did.
He read all the comic books. He did all the work. Like he played the games. He played the Arkham games. He was really into it. Like he took his role seriously. Only thing that kind of messed up the progression of the movie was him working out and like getting like extremely buff because he didn't really like keep up with his stuff. And after COVID, he came back.
Yeah, COVID hit all of us.
Skinnier than what they wanted him to be, so they had to like push back development. And I remember you said something about like, oh man, your boy's messed up. I'm like, just let him cook.
You were right. You were right. Okay, so now Marvel.
The MCU.
What is happening? So I watched Thor.
I did.
Love and Thunder.
I didn't waste my time. After Eternals, I told myself
I did not watch Eternals.
The movie's gonna be bad. I'm not wasting my time or money.
To this day, I have not seen Eternals, and I have no desire.
You're not missing nothing.
I have no desire. I'm not watching it. I'm not watching it.
And the crazy part about it is, nothing in the other movies or other shows, nobody talks about the giant hand that's now protruding from Earth. Nobody talks about it.
Yeah, I don't look. Marvel has lost their way, in my opinion.
Well, they lost like $120 billion.
123. What was that story I was reading earlier? I can't remember what it was.
$120 billion in revenue.
Something like that. I don't. Yeah, I think it was 123 billion or something like that.
Since
1974. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Look, who was it that said Marvel has made? It was
uncle. They made their money.
Now they're making a statement. Yeah,
and I was like,
that makes sense.
They did because
they made the bag.
They were cool with like following the comic books to a certain degree, make their money, gain their core fan base. And I was like, okay, now it's time to say what we really want.
Right. Yeah. Now they're doing what they want to do. So can I really be mad at them for doing that? Look, they own it. They bought it.
They can do what they want. Now the money they lose, that's on them.
Yeah. The problem is when you get companies like that do what they want. They do it at the peril of people who really follow this stuff and have for years. Like,
you can see X-Men. It with the Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
When Mark Hamill was doing his last role for Star Wars in The Last Jedi, you could tell by how he was talking and how he was describing the character, he was not a fan of what they were doing. Like, he was even like, this is not the Luke that you grew up with. I don't know who this is. Like, he was just like, he was trying not to like say it, but say it. And you could see it in the interviews, and you're like, "Oh man!" And then, like when I watched the movie, I was like, "Man, this is the most well polished turd I've ever seen." like in the movie, they literally refute.
It's a bronze turd.
they literally refute one of the first things they say about space travel in like the first Star Wars movie, like randomly jumping and not knowing where you're going. You go into a black hole like that. Like Han literally says it to Luke, and they're just like,
"Who cares?" Screw that. Let's just do what we do.
And it's not. I don't know. And then when people were talking about Rey's character, like I have no problem with Daisy Ridley. She's a great actor, right? But how they wrote Rey's character,
she wasn't flushed out. She was not flushed out at all.
And it was like if you had any problem with her character, you were sexist. And I'm like, I don't dislike her character because she's a woman. I dislike her character because it's poorly written.
Yeah,
like there are a lot of really well written women, like the protagonist in Alien. Great character.
Oh.
Well written. Amazing. One of the best movies to ever come out. Right? And the reason, like, when you get these things like
She-Hulk. That Wonder Woman movie,
it was good. But when you get these things like She-Hulk and, like, the characters in the Star Wars movies and you criticize them, they'll be like, oh, well, you're doing this because you're sexist. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it because I'm sexist. It just sucks. It is just bad. It is just a terrible written character. Like,
right.
That is it. Like, I don't care if this was a man. I don't care if it was a woman. I don't care if it was Henry Cavill himself. If it was a badly written character, I'd be like, this sucks.
It's like,
This
hey,
is-
bro,
this is
you're
dumb.
pissing down my leg and telling me it's raining.
That's what
Like,
I'm saying.
No,
Like,
I'm good.
And it kind of sucks that we're at this point in time where you can't give criticism where criticism should be given, right? Because I think if more people, especially in the film and TV industry, were to be like, okay, you know what, let's take this criticism and actually like constructively form it into something that's not
And yeah,
garbage. And it's not like just listen to everything the fans say, obviously, but
right.
there's an overwhelming group of people telling you like, oh, this is trash. You
If
shouldn't
yeah.
be like, well, you're just sexist and you hate women.
If
Like,
you make
what?
something, if you make something for our enjoyment, it would be different if you have, you know, a select few people here and there that are like, I don't like it, but the overwhelming majority, they're telling you, yo, I rock with this, I like it, right? The Batman is a prime example. You got a lot of people that it was. I'd say the reviews were mixed. I think you had a fair amount of people who didn't like it for various reasons, and I think you had
Some
a fair
people
amount of
said that it was too dark and gloomy, and I'm like, do you not know who Batman is?
yeah. I'm like,
And then you
if
see,
you read
you
a
see
Batman
the
book,
memes of people like Marvel fans when Batman doesn't throw a criminal through a wall and go like, that looks like it hurt. 'Cause,
Right.
like, Batman is not a comedic relief character. He's Batman.
no, you know, you're not gonna get Thor: Love and Thunder Batman.
Sometimes, like in certain shows and like animated TV series,
Which I
and,
will
like,
never stop
even
ragging on Thor: Love and Thunder.
in the
Terrible
comic
movie.
books, yeah, he's kind of witty, but he's not like the that looks like it hurt type of character. Like it's
No, Batman is very stoic.
yeah,
This
why I
is
like
why, yeah, this is exactly why I
Cool.
like
Cool
Batman.
dude.
He gets to the point, does what he needs to do. He ain't telling no jokes. He's not the Flash. The Flash can tell jokes.
There's
not
this
Batman.
one scene in the Justice League TV show from the 2000s where the Justice League is gonna turn themselves in, and they were like, they call Batman. He's like, so we just gotta turn ourselves in. He's like, I am not doing that. Y'all could do what y'all want. Hangs up the phone. I was just like, that's crazy.
That's Bruce Wayne.
That's Bruce
Yeah.
Wayne.
doing
was
what he
funny.
does. Yeah. So I think to your point, you're right. You're not going to do everything just to appease every fan. Not everybody's going to be appeased. Not everybody's going to like what you do. But if you just give us a giant turd and say you have to like it, no, we don't have to like it. You have to actually produce something that's worthwhile, especially if you're making it for people who've been following this IP for years.
Yeah, and now I'm not gonna say there aren't sexist comic book fans. Like, you know, I know nerds are just, some of us are just kind of stupid, right? But like any criticism towards anything that happens to be like someone that's not like me or someone that's not like a man or a certain race is like, oh, you're sexist or you're like, that's not how that works.
Right.
Like if I was that, I would just be like, oh yeah, no, I'm sexist, but I'm not. And it's like you're unable to constructively be like, hey, you should fix this, this, and this without being like,
That's turned into a shield. Like if I say
Yeah.
this, you can't criticize me anymore. Like, wait, that's not how this works.
And this is yeah. I don't remember who was it. Who was the head of like one of the heads of Marvel who was talking about how they didn't care what the fans said and they're just gonna create stories they want to create. And then like a year later, she was like, yeah, so comic books aren't doing that good.
I can't remember
You
who
know what I'm
that
talking
was, but
about?
yeah, I remember. I vaguely remember the story. I can't
was
remember
like-
who
I
it was
like,
exactly.
Man, that is,
Yeah, there's a reason because you've decided the fans don't matter.
and it's because you gotta find the good balance, right? Obviously, make stories you want to make, right? But don't make something, especially on a long-standing character that you know a lot of people are invested in, that would bastardize the character they grew up with. You
Right.
get what I mean? That doesn't mean like don't be bold
Right.
and make bold decisions with the story, but don't do something straight up stupid that just wouldn't make sense for the character for the past 20 years. You know?
Okay, so let's do this. Nintendo. Okay, so I know this is a huge segue, but you know
Off topic, I do not know where my Switch is.
that's not a good thing.
I think it's in one of those boxes. I'm gonna have to check, but I was looking for it. I was like, oh.
So Nintendo has a lot of things going on, a lot of irons in the fire.
You know what's coming out in March?
Nintendo World,
Hold up, wait, but you know what's coming out in March?
Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes, sir.
okay, so for those
I
who
had to move
don't
my
know,
mic for that.
Nintendo has a theme park in Japan, and they're building theme parks in California, Universal Studios, and in Orlando, Universal Studios. It's I don't know if it's Nintendo Land or Nintendo World.
Nintendo Land.
Okay, Nintendo Land.
Oh no, Nintendo World.
That's a big deal.
No,
that's a really big deal. Now
we're going. We're getting those free tickets.
So here is where I think Disney might have a run for their money. Universal Studios is actually adding a bunch of things.
Yes,
that's making that park a little more attractive than Disney World.
I will say,
except for Galaxy's Edge.
Having been to both, I would. How do I sound right now? Am I good?
Yeah, you good.
Okay. Having been to both, I will say, not being below the age of 14, I kind of enjoyed my time at Universal a lot more.
I can definitely see that.
Like Star Wars Land is good, but if that's the only thing I like there, I'm not gonna go.
Right. Pay all this money and go there. Yeah.
So
Disney is, I would say, slightly overpriced, but they're more than slightly overpriced. Disney is way overpriced.
Even if you live here, it's like $120.
I don't know. I can't remember what the price was, but last time we went, it was rather pricey. Which, at the time, this was before the pandemic, so I don't know what was the need to charge that much. Because I mean, even now, like I haven't been to Disney in a few years. You've been more recently. Does it still have a bunch like huge crowds?
Oh yeah.
So like,
well, this was like December around of last year.
Okay, and there's still huge crowds. All right, so Disney, why you're charging so much when you have a constant influx of people? Look, you can charge.
Well, they lost a lot of money.
They lost a lot. Disney lost a lot last year, but that's their own fault.
Why can I not find ticket prices right now?
Yeah, that's their own fault. Disney did a lot of things to shoot themselves in the foot, but I don't know how. I was talking about Nintendo.
I got sent to Universal tickets. To Universal, or you can save $65.
How much are tickets to Universal right now?
$109.
It's not bad. Still pricey, but I get it. Disney's gonna be like $160 if I had to guess. If you do a park hopper, I think if you do a park hopper, it's like $135, $140, somewhere around there. Could be mistaken.
I found the tickets. Let's see.
It's been a while since I've gone to Disney, so we're gonna see what the disparity is between.
So $109 for tickets to Universal. I think that gets you like almost everywhere. Like I don't think there's like certain ones you gotta go to or not. I can't even find the Disney prices, bro.
Disney ticket prices you can't find? That's kind of crazy. No, I
might be looking in the wrong place.
We're gonna look right now for Disney ticket prices while we're sitting here talking to you guys.
I can't find it. I don't know what's going on here.
Disney.
Oh, okay.
Ticket.
Disney will increase ticket prices for second time in a year. The ticket is between $109 and $159 depending on demand, but starting December 8th will range now.
$109 to $159, you said?
Hold up, it's a 12% increase, and this was last year. So, 124, 179, 124, 279. Yeah.
So I'm assuming 179 is the park hopper. Yeah. If I had to guess, that is
dang. I remember like a few years ago, it was like 124 for a park hopper.
Crazy. That is crazy. Imagine a family of 5 going to Disney for a week. Oh my goodness. I cannot even imagine. That's
$7,000.
It's probably more than that. It's probably more than that when it's all said and done. It's probably some stupid price. Anyway, Nintendo. What is Nintendo doing? Is there a Switch Pro coming? Do you think there's a Switch Pro coming? Let's say not next year. Let's say within the next 2 years. Do you think a Switch Pro is coming?
No.
Okay.
Let me tell you why.
Okay.
Nintendo is very good at stretching their technology as far as it needs to go in the right direction.
This is true.
Right?
They do that.
And obviously you get games like the new Pokemon game that's just terrible, but that's not Nintendo. Nintendo knows their technology enough to be able to use it in effective ways. They don't have to upgrade it that often. Like obviously it's not gonna be 4K, 200,000 megaflops of processing power, right? Because they're focused on gameplay and making fun games that their people like to play, right? So they could come up with a Switch Pro and it will be good. It would be for their benefit, but they don't have any negatives for not. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I definitely
because
understand.
They came out with the Switch Lite, they're able to support their company.
I love my Switch Lite
because like that's what they made it. That's why because I remember when the Switch Lite came out and you were like, I don't know if it's a good idea, and I had to explain to you like they no longer support the DS. So they need something that's around that price range and they can put their games on, right? That can go for the average consumer or the younger consumers that parents don't want to spend like $400 on, right?
Right.
So they're pretty much set. Like they set themselves up so they can just do what they want to do.
The Switch Lite is perfect for me. I play it on the fly,
and that's
I can play it while I'm sitting down. I can play it while I'm sitting in my bed.
I don't think they have no incentive to do it. I mean, if they do, they do. If they don't, they don't.
Do you think they'll still be able to compete? Because, and the reason I say that is I think there's certain games like that new Marvel game. What is it called? Sons of Darkness. Is that the name of the game? It's supposed to be coming on the Switch as well.
What game are you talking about?
It's Marvel's. What's the name of that?
Isn't that Avengers game? That Avengers game is not good.
No. Not, there's a new game. It's called Marvel Sons of Darkness. I think is what it's. Yeah, Marvel Midnight Suns. The Marvel Midnight Suns game is going to come on the Switch as well. It's supposed to be being released on, so I don't know exactly when.
What type of game is this?
It's like action. I don't know if you consider it action RPG. Yeah, so I'm looking at it right now on Wikipedia and the platforms, and it has the Switch listed. Okay, this is why I say this. Do you think the Switch will have problems competing with Xbox and PlayStation with their latest iterations?
I think they'll have problems competing with PlayStation, but Xbox is cooked.
Interesting.
Xbox has been cooked for a while.
Why
the Switch outsold the Xbox.
Well, I mean, let's keep it real.
But it's still outselling the Xbox. That's the thing.
So what about
if they weren't still outselling the Xbox? I would agree with you. Now Sony's a different story because Sony is like
it's a Japanese company.
Exactly. So they're like bigger, like the big brother version of Nintendo as far as their system goes, because there are multiple Asian countries, there are multiple like East Western countries. They're all over the world.
That's Sony's biggest problem.
Same thing with Nintendo. They're all over the world as well, right? Xbox is America.
Primarily.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And a lot of like ever since the switch from like Xbox to PlayStation being in charge of MLG, it's switched.
Didn't Xbox recently outsell PlayStation in Japan or something like that? Or was it last year at some point?
Xbox will never outsell PlayStation in Japan.
Thought for some reason I thought there was a story about Xbox outsell. I could be mistaken. I don't keep up with it that much, but I just so I wonder, because when you see a lot of these new games coming out,
Xbox Series XS has outsold in North America.
Okay, well, that's to be expected.
Yeah.
But okay, so when you see a lot of these, the power constraint. Now, okay, so let me say this. All right, I'm gonna say this. When you see a lot of these games and the power constraints that the Switch has, I wonder if they'll be able to compete. But then
Doom Eternal.
That's exactly
Doom
what I was
Eternal.
say. I just
that's
bought
why.
Doom
That's why I'm saying
Switch.
like that's why I said that, because I'm like, like people will say these arguments, and it's like this like. The team at Nintendo, a lot of the companies that port over these games,
they're putting in work.
That's what I'm saying. So it's not, they really don't really have much incentive to do that. Now, what I will say is that their support for indie games is going to be very instrumental to how they progress in the next 5 years, right?
Okay.
Because in the game industry, you're starting to see a shift from all these AAA titles. People are going more like to play more indie style games. Right. Okay. Unless it's like something like a FirmSoft game or like a game studio that actually cares about the product they release. A lot of people are focused more on like, oh, hey, have you seen this new indie game that came out recently? Like that's what I'm hearing. Like a lot of games that like a lot of people are talking about are games that aren't like mainstream. Now, obviously, you have your Fortnites, you have your Apex Legends. Like those aren't going anywhere.
Right.
But
right.
I think that what would be more detrimental to Switch's success is two things: their ability to stay updated with recent tech as far as like what people are playing and like what people are connecting with, right?
Okay.
And two, Metroid.
Yo, Metroid is like, to me, Metroid is their ace in a hole.
It's gonna be good.
I think
like
it
when
is.
you, because like when you were you the one who was worried when they delayed it?
I was.
Okay,
I remember.
Miyamoto, right? He has this quote that says, "A delayed game is only delayed for so long, but a bad game is bad forever."
It's true.
He's a high-ranking dude at Nintendo, and that's just how they roll. Because the same thing happened with Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, because that was supposed to come out on the Wii.
Being one of the best games to release in the last 20 years.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild is serious. Breath of the Wild is serious. That's probably one of the most serious RPGs.
So whenever Nintendo
it competes with Final Fantasy VII's original release, in my opinion.
Yeah. by far. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
for sure. And that's why whenever I hear Nintendo delaying games, I'm not too worried. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You gotta trust me. You gotta trust me.
We'll see.
I think Metro will be good. Metro will be good.
Okay. So 2023, which game studio is gonna be pumping out hits? Do you think is gonna pump out hits?
Pumping out hits?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, elaborate.
Like who okay, what if you had to pick a game development company that is primed to release some heat in 2023, who do you think that is?
Okay, I'm gonna answer your question in two different ways.
Okay.
So, firstly, right, as far as games go, there have been so many dark horses and like random like game studios that have come out the woodwork and just gone gangbusters, right? Especially since the start of COVID, people are seeing more games, more indie companies are starting to pop off. So I'm not really sure. Like, I feel like it'll probably be something similar to that. But as far as like games that I think are going to go like absolutely insane, and game studios I think are going to make like a good amount of money this year, Insomniac, because they're releasing the new Spider-Man game, and I think they started development on the Wolverine game, but that new Spider-Man game looks good, and they're like the stuff they're talking about. Because I think I was talking to one of the developers about it during my school's Hall of Fame, and they're doing some cool stuff. They're doing some really cool stuff with that Spider-Man game. So them, Epic Games is gonna make a bunch of money.
They always do.
Wasn't even in the debate.
Yeah.
And the new Star Wars Fallen Order game. That's gonna be good.
Yeah.
I'm still playing through the first one. It's really good. It kind of reminds me of like a Souls-like thing where you like it's just it's hard. It's really hard.
Your prediction, top selling console of 2023.
That really depends. I'm gonna be honest. Especially with the chip shortage and all these bots buying up all these consoles, I have no clue.
Okay, that's
you know what? The Switch. I'll say the Switch.
Because the easiest one to produce. Yeah,
like the Switch.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
This is my list.
Using that, was it Tegra 2
processor? PCs, the Switch, or PS5. Xbox is not in that conversation.
Do you think they're cooked?
The only reason Xbox outsold PS5, I'm thinking, is probably because PS5s are hard to find.
And Halo. People were excited about Halo initially.
They're not anymore.
Initially, that's why I said initially.
Like, they're kind of saving it, but it's too little too late. I'm clocked out. I'm not buying. I'm not down with that game again.
Yeah, that's hard. Okay, comic books. What comic book house is going to be...
Rippaverse.
Okay, I didn't even have to finish the question.
Rippaverse or manga. A lot of mangas outside.
Okay, so let's say... Let's separate manga and put manga in another category, because manga is like a category in and of itself. So
oh snap! Hey, we got 1 minute till the new year.
That's what I was waiting for. So comic book houses. So you say Rippaverse is going to be...
I think DC could make a comeback with all the stories they're dropping now. Because like
Happy New Year! It is the new year, 2023.
Happy New Year,
guys! By the time you see this video, it'll already be the new year. But Happy New Year to everybody out there. I think the Rippaverse has restored the feeling of good comic books, and I tell you what,
if they release some more stories, like some different runs of different, because I know that he started talking about that. Like once they get more money from Rippaverse and they start like diversifying, it'll be pretty decent.
So you were keeping up with this more than me. So I'm gonna ask you this: when did they first start talking about this Spawn Batman book?
Give me a second. It was like I was like second month of final project, so like during the summer.
Okay.
Like June, July. They started talking about this one because Jim Lee posted about it, and then they started talking about Deadly Duo.
Okay. Do you think Eric July's Rippaverse is putting a fire under these other
Rippaverse come out again?
Rippaverse 3 months ago. But he was talking about it for like a good year
I don't know.
Ago.
Because I haven't seen. Because the thing is, I haven't seen anybody talking about it. That's like big. But they have no incentive to.
But they're avoiding it. That's the thing. A lot of these.
Jim Lee hasn't said anything.
People
Mark Silverstreet
avoiding talking about the Rippaverse. Nothing. They don't want to mention it. CBR, the biggest comic book news website, as far as I know, and there's no mention. I went to look the other day. There's no mention of the Rippaverse.
You control H it?
What'd you say?
You control H it?
Yeah.
Damn.
There's no mention of the Rippaverse anywhere on their website. Now, maybe there's an article somewhere on there where somebody criticized it, maybe possibly, but no, I think they're avoiding it altogether.
No, I mean, it might have. The thing about it that I will say, there are good comic book stories every year. You just have to you gotta
search for them.
You gotta look.
It wasn't always like that. It used to be where you go into the comic book store, and every now and again you get something that was bad.
About it, whenever something gets saturated, that's just how it goes. That's how it's been with anime.
That's true.
That's how it's been with games.
You think it's just lazy? People get lazy. They're making so much money that they're like, we don't gotta try.
No, that's exactly what it is. I think the single worst thing that happened. I'll say it like this: the single worst and the single best thing to happen to anything nerddom, whether we talked about this in a previous podcast, whether it be video games, whether it be comic books, whether it be anime, is people who are big wigs and big business people who start to realize how much money these things take in, and two things happen. It becomes more accessible and better for the people who are actually fans of it, and it also becomes worse because they start releasing stuff that sucks. Or they start focusing solely on money, and it's just it's like you win and you lose really big at the same time.
This is true. Well, on that note, we're going to get out of here. Thank you guys for joining us. I hope everyone has a happy new year, and deuces.